Welcome to Celebrity Scoop, your go-to source for the latest news, stories, and updates from the world of celebrities and royalty. Here, we dive deep into every headline, giving you the facts, the context, and the perspective you won't always get elsewhere. We cover every side of the story, but one thing is clear. We stand with those who strive for truth, authenticity, and positive change. From the latest royal updates to exclusive celebrity moments, you're in the right place to stay informed, entertained, and in the know. Let's get into today's story. Prince Harry's latest announcement has sent a fresh wave of excitement across supporters worldwide, and for good reason. The Duke of Sussex is officially headed to Canada once again. This time not for games, not for a royal event, and not for tradition, but for something that speaks directly to who he has become, the man he has shaped himself into, and the mission he carries on his shoulders. Harry has been unveiled as the keynote speaker for a high-profile conference in Toronto, a 270-head real estate and leadership event that surprisingly has very little to do with actual real estate, but everything to do with purpose, resilience, healing, and human transformation, areas where Prince Harry stands out as a global voice. Hosted at the Hilton Toronto on December 1st, the event's organisers proudly describe him as a humanitarian, a mental health advocate, an environmentalist, and a military combat veteran, emphasising how his life's work now lies in creating positive and lasting change for communities and for the planet. And truly, nothing could be more accurate. Prince Harry's journey has been anything but ordinary. For decades, the world watched him grow from a young prince shaped by unimaginable grief to a soldier who insisted on serving on the ground rather than watching from a gilded distance, to a global advocate for wounded veterans, mental health awareness, and social healing. His evolution has been public yet deeply personal, and this upcoming keynote is yet another testament to how far he has come. People who underestimate him often choose to freeze him in his royal past, pointing to grace and favour cottages and palace walls. But Harry long ago stepped out of that shadow. He's no longer defined by royal residences, royal expectations, or royal limitations. Instead, he has chosen purpose over privilege, service over spectacle, and humanity over hierarchy. And that is exactly what this conference recognises. Canada holds a special place in Harry's story, and that's what makes this trip even more powerful. Canada was, in many ways, the birthplace of his true independence, the country where he and Meghan first built a life away from the noise, the chaos, and the relentless pressure. Toronto was a backdrop to the Invictus Games, the event that not only showcased Harry's dedication to injured veterans, but also, in many respects, revealed the strength of his own spirit. It was in Canada that Harry began to boldly define himself outside the royal framework, choosing his own path instead of following one constructed for him. So heading back now, not as a royal figure making an appearance, but as a respected global speaker with a message the world wants to hear, feels like a full circle moment. When the conference organisers listed the qualities that define Prince Harry, they chose words that reflect the essence of who he has become: humanitarian, mental health advocate, environmentalist, military combat veteran. These are not titles granted by birth. These are earned identities, built through effort, sacrifice, and dedication. Harry's work with mental health, from Heads Together to the powerful conversations he fosters through his projects and interviews, has helped people around the world feel seen, heard, and validated. His advocacy isn't performative, it's grounded in lived experience. He talks about emotional wounds because he's had them. He talks about trauma because he's lived through it. That honesty is what makes him relatable, human, and impactful. Then there's his service as a soldier. Unlike many who speak of military life with borrowed authority, Prince Harry's understanding comes from a life spent in active duty. He served in Afghanistan twice, not in ceremonial positions, but in real combat settings, putting himself alongside those he now fights for through the Invictus movement. It is this combination of experience, emotional, military, humanitarian, that makes his voice uniquely powerful in conversations about resilience and healing. And that's why a conference that isn't even focused on real estate wants him as their keynote speaker. They don't need a property expert. They need someone who can speak to leadership, to transformation, to the courage it takes to rebuild oneself. Harry embodies that. His message for the conference is expected to revolve around leadership that is anchored in empathy rather than authority, community rather than isolation, and humanity rather than hierarchy. In a world that often glorifies transactional success, Prince Harry has consistently pushed a narrative of purpose-driven living. Whether through the Invictus Games, his philanthropic endeavours, or his advocacy work, he brings a perspective that blends compassion with courage and vulnerability with strength. These are the themes Canada will hear from him, and these are the themes that resonate far beyond geographical borders. It's fascinating to watch the shift in how Prince Harry is now perceived on the global stage. While critics sometimes attempt to reduce him to his past or dismiss his accomplishments, the invitations he receives tell a very different story. Organizations, conferences, institutions, and leaders recognize the value of his insights, the power of his voice, and the authenticity of his message. They see a man who has lived a life shaped by both privilege and profound pain, a man who has served a nation in uniform, a man who has chosen to prioritize his mental well-being and the well-being of his family, and a man who understands resilience because he has had to develop it. The world listens to Harry not because of his title, but because of his truth. And let's not forget the symbolism of him returning to Canada at this particular time. The last few years have been transformative for him, leaving royal life, becoming a father of two, building a new home, a new identity, and a new mission. Canada was one of the first places where the world saw him as a man stepping into his own future. Now he returns as a global voice, as someone sought out for his perspective on healing and community building. The narrative is shifting, and this keynote address is part of that evolution. It's a reminder that Harry's journey is not defined by what he left behind, but by what he is building ahead. The conference itself, marketed as a leadership and resilience event with a real estate-driven audience, is the perfect setting for Harry because it blends business with humanity. It's a gathering of people who want to understand how to lead in complex times, how to create meaningful change, and how to build environments, not just buildings, where people can thrive. And who better to speak on this than someone who has rebuilt his entire life, who has created new structures of emotional safety, purpose, and community for himself and others. Harry's words will not be theoretical. They will be rooted in experience, in lessons learned the hard way, in the courage it takes to break generational cycles, and in the belief that no matter how difficult the journey, one can rise and rebuild. As December approaches, anticipation grows. Supporters are excited, conference attendees are eager, and even critics, whether they admit it or not, know that Harry's voice carries weight. Every time he speaks publicly, he brings a level of sincerity, groundedness, and emotional intelligence that is rare among global figures. His trip to Canada is more than just another engagement. It is a reaffirmation of his purpose. It is a statement that his work continues, that his influence is expanding, and that his mission remains as clear as ever, to inspire resilience, to champion healing, and to use his platform for good. Prince Harry is not returning to Canada as a prince defined by palace walls. He is arriving as a leader, a humanitarian, a veteran, and a change-maker. And in a world that is desperately in need of compassion, courage, and authentic leadership, his presence on that Toronto stage will undoubtedly leave an impact that extends far beyond the conference room. As always, Harry continues to rise, continues to lead, and continues to prove that purpose, not privilege, is what defines a meaningful life.